Welcome back, viewers. This is Literary Goa, the program that looks at books and authors on Goa, from Goa, about Goa. We are talking to you from our studios at Institute Piedad in Panjim, very close to the heart of town. Today we have with us Dr. Isabel de Santa Rita Vaz. Okay. When I asked her to be on this show, she made one comment. She said, "I've written only one book."
True.
But I think that comment hides many decades of work in the world of theatre, many decades of work as a very popular teacher at Dempe College, mentoring young students, and also things like your PhD, which, as someone said, PhD is something which very few people read. Not so today, but
That's right.
with an online presence, more people read it and it's visible there. So, Doctor, tell us about first your work in theatre. We'll come to your book next, because that is only an add-on to your actual decades of work.
My work in theatre is a very big part of my life, actually, because there is the writing part and there is the performance part. And each one is almost a project by itself. And then eventually they come together. So a lot of energy and a lot of deliberation and, a whole lot of dynamics, some of which are quite unexpected. It all happens in theatre. Some of it is backstage, some of it is on stage, some of it is in the quiet moment of writing. So there's a lot in theatre, and it has taken very, very many years of my life.
So at what point did you decide that this is going to be important to you, and why?
I don't know whether I made a conscious decision like that. As a teacher, very often teachers are requested to, rehearse some play in the school or in the college. And sometimes it is the language teachers who are given those responsibilities. And I was a teacher at Dempe College. So at some point, it was my responsibility to work with the students for the annual day program. And that's how it began. I didn't make a conscious decision that it would be important. Okay. But it became important because it is a part of our relationship with the students.
How many plays since which year?
See, in college, that was something different.
Yeah.
That was part of the college life as such. Then, at some point, we started with a theatre group of our own.
Mustard Seed.
The Mustard Seed Art Company, we call it. And that was, this is the 32nd year.
Wow.
So
that's a full generation, almost a full generation. So
you can say so. In fact, there are people now who come with their children to take part. So it's fun.
It started in the 80s, and your first production was?
87.
87.
87.
That is?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about your productions?
See, we began
Yeah.
with scripts written by great writers. Some of them were Indian writers, for instance, Mahesh Dattani's Tara we did. And as we went along, we started looking at our own stories. And there weren't any plays that we could take on to say what we really thought about our own small reality. So the first original play that we staged was called A Leaf in the Wind, which had something to do with HIV/AIDS as part of the Goan reality.
It hit us as a big shock in those days, no?
Yes. So then there was no looking back. Then we have done plays by other people. Other members of the group have written their own scripts. And of course, it is always group energy, because I have written some of the scripts, other people have written other scripts. Members of the group direct, sometimes they take turns directing, then somebody choreographs, somebody writes original lyrics, somebody else composes music. So it is a very collaborative art. theatre by its very nature.
I know you understand this field well because you worked in it for so long, but can you tell us why English theatre in Goa, home-produced English theatre, is not particularly popular or not particularly visible? We have the Konkani Theatre, which is hugely vibrant and commercially viable and all that. English theatre is not. Why? Marathi nataks are there,
Yeah.
but not English. Why?
I suppose there are a couple of reasons. One, I think, is that people in Goa like music more than a play. If it is a full-blooded musical, people come. But that is a kind of a format that is imposed on you, and we don't like to stick to one format. We move, we experiment a great deal. Another thing is the theatre is extremely popular, but it has a formula which the population really enjoys thoroughly. We don't have a formula, we experiment. We do different kinds of plays. Our plays are not always set in Goa. We might talk about Mozart and his life and his attitude to music. We might talk about Rabindra Babu at the post office. The man interests us, so we write about him. The audience may not be in love with Rabindranath Tagore, but we are. And so we think there's something to be said, and we say it.
When you started the Mustard Seed Art Company, why the name? I know it's biblical in a way.
Yeah, it is biblical, and it is also very symbolic. The seed contains a whole forest.
It's tiny.
It's tiny, and it is full of potential. Where does the forest come from? It's the seed. So in a sense, each member of the group interprets the name differently. I see it as something living and organic. For me, that is extremely important.
Frescoes in the Womb, 6 plays from Goa. Tell us about the 6 plays, a little bit on each, and why you chose them.
Yes. See, when I thought of publishing some of my plays, I thought the people who would read them would be basically from Goa. And they would perhaps like to know something about aspects of Goa that haven't come to their notice earlier. So some of the plays are about personalities, some of them are about attitudes, and they are rooted in Goa.
For example?
All. Who Sits Behind My Eyes was chronologically also earlier than the others. It's about the position of the woman in the fishing community in Goa. So there's something there of interest to anybody who has observed Goa or lived in Goa. And for me, it was extremely interesting. The sea and the ocean being so much a part of our lives and our culture. So what is the woman like by the sea, part of the fishing community? What's that boat like? What are the old people who travel and come back? What do they bring? The nets, are they symbolic of freedom? Are they symbolic of bondage? So in a sense, it was the woman's voice that interested me.
Very deep and...
it was something that interested me deeply.
Yeah.
In fact, all of them do. So it's never written only for an audience. They are not serious. They are serious in the sense that...
They're not pedantic.
They are not preachy.
Preachy.
But we are very serious about theatre. So in that sense, we take it extremely seriously. An observer who looks at us may think we are...
Just having fun.
Just having fun, or unstructured.
Okay.
But we take our work extremely seriously. We never settle for mediocrity. So people travel. Sometimes they have their families. They get up at 3 in the morning to learn their lines. So theatre is really a passion for us. So that was Who Sits Behind My Eyes. Playing with the Eye of the Dragon was celebrating a major event in Goa, and that was liberation.
1961.
1961. And it was memories of this event, how different they can be. And this we performed somewhere, and the members of the audience who were not from Goa seemed to be extremely interested and absorbed in it. Then Katurebaji, or Corridors of Power, is a play about Abe Faria, who is a pioneer hypnotist.
At the global scale.
A statue of his is almost emblematic of Panjim, and yet not many people know about this man. Even the people who have their, commercial ventures around that plaza, they don't know. So I thought this would be, in fact, I did a small course in filmmaking, and at that point I thought perhaps I could do a documentary film, which got done. But that material helped in the writing of this play because it is somewhat ambitious. It is set in Kanduli, then it goes to Rome and ends in France.
I see.
So Abe Faria became a kind of mysterious person who needed to be studied in greater depth. Then on the Holy Trail.
And of course, Katurebaji is from his famous episode where his father.
Exactly.
His father, you'd like to complete it?
Yeah, his father encouraged him to be bold.
When he was giving a sermon.
Yes, he was.
In Portugal or Rome?
In Portugal, before the Queen. And he was a little tongue-tied because this was a very grand audience. But his father, who was sitting in the audience, whispered to him in a language that the audience wouldn't understand, said in his native Konkani to his son, Katurebaji, Isogli Baji. Be scared of nothing. Life can be handled.
That's an interesting story from Goan history, but I wonder how many of us remember it in that sense now.
Yes, so that is another reason why these plays are written, that we celebrate something and we make it accessible. Frankly, that is one reason why these plays are written.
We are forgetting our own history in a certain sense now.
We don't even know. Sometimes we don't even know. Anyway, On the Holy Trail is about a problem in Goa where the land is sometimes exploited by various mafias. So the Holy Grail becomes the Holy Trail here. Then Ghosts at Large is set in a library that is planning to shift. So an old house, which was the home of a whole lot of writers, is now going to be closed down and the library is going to shift elsewhere. The writers' ghosts pop up in the evening and they have their own conversations about what each one did with his or her life and also about the place.
I see.
So for us it was exciting because we got to know about some of these people. Some of them were writers, some of them were poets. I mean, some were novelists, some were essayists, some were poets. So that was good fun. The members of the group were not all aware of all these writers. So it starts a conversation.
True.
Then Frescoes in the Womb.
After which the book is also named.
Yes. Was a small play that we performed for some art festival in Panjim. And it was celebrating artists. The storyline is simple. A young man from Goa who has traveled and settled abroad finds that his creativity is becoming arid and comes back to Goa. Events that happen here sort of refresh his creative spirit. And as part of this performance, we performed it out in the open in some courtyard. So we also had a little bit of narration And under beautiful trees, we had narration where people celebrated the great writers and painters of the past in Goa. So in a sense,
Very
that was
interesting, very
very much part of Goa.
I think people are missing out on the kind of message that you're taking across. What would you see as the main challenges in doing theatre in 21st century, English theatre in 21st century Goa?
See, if you are primarily focused on getting a big audience, then you have too many restrictions. That is not our goal. By now, we have an audience. People do come. And so we want something that they will enjoy, something that will give them something new, something that will entertain, but at the same time provoke some thought, that will start some interesting conversations. So our use of language is deliberately not Queen's English. It is the kind of language spoken English in Goa, in India, with a little bit of other languages that are part of the fabric of our lives. So challenges are, I think, to keep breaking, restraints and focus on what maybe is important at the moment for the people around us as well as for us performers.
What's the greatest joy that theatre gave you, in the sense that you spent so much time invested in it? I'm sure you've also got back something in an intangible form.
Yes. I think, for me, the theatre and my teaching career, there's some kind of an overlap. And both of them
Feed each other?
Feed each other, yes. They do, because as a student of literature, I became a little more confident when it came to writing a play. And also as a student of drama, I had the background of having read literature. So I knew a few things.
And also the plays make you bond probably with your students at a much deeper level than...
So what I am getting at is that personally for me, the growth of the actors as well as of my students, that's very high on my list of priorities. So when I see them growing and developing a certain amount of confidence, taking an interest in new ideas, finding a way of collaborating despite differences, that's my high.
Isabel, I want to ask you something which might be a bit personal. Tell us something about your family. You come from a very literary background. In the world of Goan writing, the Santa Rita vases have a role to play. I'm not only talking about your brother Louis, who is very shy about doing an interview here, but also, in the history of the press.
It's true, actually.
In the history of bookshops in Goa, in the history of so many things.
I won't give you details, but I will tell you that we were born with lots of books around us all the time. Everybody at home liked to read.
This is Panjim or
Panjim,
okay,
Panjim. We lived in Panjim all our lives.
Okay.
There was one grand uncle as well as an uncle, my father's brother. They were editors of newspapers. Antonio Maria de Cunha and Álvaro Santa Rita Vaz. So they were writers, they were lovers of books, and everybody wrote, everybody read. As children, life was different.
Then, because we had nothing else, no?
And we were not, taken here and there for this class and that class. There were books, and we entertained ourselves, and we did things. So, yes, it's true that books were very much a part of our lives, and the people around us did a lot of writing as well, including my father.
Your father was?
Fernando Santa Rita Vaz, and He was an engineer by profession, but he even wrote and published in the newspapers.
And of course, your brother Louis.
My brother has published more than
27 when I counted.
28 books.
28.
Yes.
28.
Yeah.
And he also figures in the autobiography of this great editor Vinod Mehta as being responsible for bringing him into writing.
Right.
Yeah. So all these.
He was also into publishing.
Correct, in Jaiko
Publishing House.
That's very early, so
yes.
Yeah, very unusual. Unfortunately, I cannot convince him to come here, so we'll have to try again. But it's fascinating. So Isabel, tell us about your younger days. This was 50s in Panjim. Where did you study and how did you shift over from Portuguese to English? Was it tough?
Yeah, I lived in Panjim all my life. So we were part of a major event which at that time we thought was routine, and that was the liberation of Goa. So we had to change from Portuguese medium to English medium.
In which class were you?
I went to the 7th standard.
Mary Immaculate?
No, my primary I did for 2 years in Mary Immaculate. Then it was a government school where my mother was a teacher, government primary school. And then in 1960-61, I was at the Liceu Nacional Afonso de Albuquerque. In 62, I moved to People's High School to learn English.
Which class?
7th.
7th.
Then we went to the Lyceum once again. That was by that time
English.
linked, yes, English medium,
Okay.
and it was a government higher secondary school associated with Delhi Board.
Delhi Board.
Then it was Dempe College,
Yeah.
and then I came back to, then it was Bombay University to do my
So
MA.
you've seen a lot of social change in
A
your
lot.
lifetime.
A lot.
And the story of the 60s is waiting to be written. Any plans to write it? Because for someone who was not part of that Panjim circuit, to understand what the people felt or what they went through or how they cope with change is a bit tough. Like, no, I mean, for us guys who came in from other states, that was never the challenge that we faced.
One of it is already written in Playing with the Eye of the Dragon.
I see.
Another one, which is the opinion poll, and how it meant different things to different people, completely different perspectives. Conflicting or not meeting at all, was in another play called Voices After Me. So memories that are so distinct, you wonder whether these people shared the same history.
Or the same perception, for sure.
Perception was certainly different.
Last question. In terms of your teaching, what makes you such a popular teacher? I know you're going to insist and say I'm not a popular teacher, but this is what everyone says. My own experience is that you will never say anything negative to someone. You'll always dig and find, unlike most of us Goans, you'll dig and find for that something positive which can boost someone and enhance their confidence. But there must be more secrets than this to making you such a popular teacher.
See, Frederick, I am not looking to be a popular teacher.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just there as a teacher, very simple. And whoever is sitting in my class is important to me. And I look at them with respect, whether they know the language or not. Some of them are first generation learners who are struggling to cope.
True.
But who cares? There are people there. And I think they realize that they matter to the teacher. If at all there is some good relationship, I suspect that this is the basis. They know the teacher knows them and respects them.
Although I said last question, here's a last question. Your next plans for writing. Don't say there are no plans. There has to be some.
No, there are plans. I'm already working on something, on another play.
Okay.
And we usually perform 2 plays a year.
I see.
So the other one is already in my pipe now. Planning to write something. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't talk about it.
Maybe you shouldn't talk about it. Sometimes they say when you talk about it, you spoil.
That's true. But it's already in the pipeline,
yes. Great.
I'm writing.
Having said that, Doctor, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your, I think the work you're doing is extremely important. It's very intangible and it may not reflect in the printed page, but it's out there and one day people will accept it for what it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.